So we just watched Netflix's $100 million action vampire film starring Jamie Foxx, Dave Franco, and Snoop Doggy Dogg himself. Now, this is a film that I went into with zero expectations. I didn't even watch a trailer. I was just kind of like, well, we'll just kind of see how it goes. Now, this is from first-time director J.J. Perry. But J.J. Perry was a stunt coordinator on a ton of shit, including some of the John Wick franchise, in addition to Fast and the Furious and all sorts of things. Also, he was a second unit director on a bunch of big-name films as well. So it's not like he's done nothing before, but it very much shows that he has experience while directing this film. The people who wrote this film, one of the writers has never done anything before, but the other writer is the writer of one of the writers of John Wick 3 and one of the writers of John Wick 4 as well. And this movie is about a vampire hunter played by Jamie Foxx, Bud the Chud. Yeah, Bud the Chud. No, it's not Bud the Chud. Bud Jablonski. And he needs money fast because his wife, who does not know what he does for a living, is going to take the kid and leave. They're already separated at this point, and she thinks he's a pool cleaner. And he needs money fast because she's going to bail with the kid. I think I already said all that. I said that again?
You said that he needed money fast twice.
I didn't say that. Okay. But yeah, she's going to bail with the kid. He needs to come up with like 10 grand. He used to work for this union, which is like the Vampire Hunters Legit.
Yeah, it's
and he's like doing the underground version right now because he got kicked out of the big leagues. So he goes and he kind of begs his way back in so that he can get this money. And there's this big vampire lady in town who's a real estate agent, and she's going around killing everybody. He needs to kill vampires to pay the bills, and he pisses off the wrong vampire. So, that all being said, okay, first thing I will say about this is that I would love to see this turn into a franchise. I think this has total franchise potential, and with them spending this much money on it, I'm sure that is the intent here. I could also watch an entire spin-off series with the Nazarian twins all day long. The brothers here, one played by Steve Howey, who I know as Kevin in Shameless, and Scott Adkins, who is one of my favorite martial art filmmakers. And if you haven't seen a Scott Adkins movie, what are you doing with your life? But, okay, so this film is done by someone who's worked on John Wick and the Fast and the Furious and all that stuff, and writers of that and this. This film has the best fight sequences I've watched in 2022 so far. I have not watched Carter yet. I'm really looking forward to that as well. That just dropped on Netflix. The opening fight scene of this film takes place between him and an old lady. And
it's insane.
It's fucking
it's so
crazy.
Good.
Like, it's so much better than I would have ever expected a fight scene from this movie to be. Like, it kind of reminded me, as I told you, it reminded me of Legion.
Right.
In the sense of, like, how this woman moves.
Right.
It doesn't look as CG'd as that.
No.
They clearly hired some contortionists and gymnasts to do this because the way this woman's body moves is wild. Now, some of it's
so
CG, don't get me wrong. But people, there's a scene in Django Unchained where a woman is like ripped across a room when she gets shot. That's also Jamie Foxx. And when she, they're like, say goodbye to whoever, and he shoots her and she gets flung out of the room like 30 feet. That happens like 15 times in this movie.
Yeah, that happens so much in the movie, and it was so great. Like, every time it was just like, I don't know, the dopamine release.
When people
was
get
huge.
shot in movies, typically, they go, "Ugh," and they fall over. In this movie, when people are shot, they are thrown like they were shot out of a fucking cannon.
It's so good.
And it's amazing.
It's so, like, comical, but also brutal.
Yeah.
Which is great. It's just wonderful.
So, if you want any form of believability, realism, anything, fucking do not watch this movie. This movie is ludicrous.
Yeah, it's a...
But in an insanely fun way. This is the kind of movie that when someone sits down and watches this and isn't enjoying it, I'm sitting there like, do you know how to have fun? Do you know how to have a good time? Like, is fun banned in your life?
Do you even know what fun means?
Because this movie is just outright fun as fuck. And
It's very entertaining.
there's... That fight sequence is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But then they have a second fight scene with the brothers that is like they break in on a house that's a den.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like 100 vampires in there. And it's just so over the top. Like shit that could never happen in a million years. The humans are way, way too...
Like, precise.
Yes.
And,
I don't care. I don't
Yeah.
care.
But that's what's cool, like what you were saying earlier about this having the potential to turn into a franchise. I feel like there's a lot in the universe that you could expand upon. Like, is there something special about the humans that are hunters, you know, and like all of that?
Mm-hmm.
So, because it's insane. Like, it's so insane what they do. It's
Yeah.
impossible without some kind of added whatever to it.
Yeah, I mean, just for, you know, for context, when you're watching this, just watch how the brothers pass each other a bullet. Right? It's just, it's impossible. I don't care. It's fun.
Super
and it's
fun.
just super over the top action. Violent as shit. Like, people get torn apart when they're shot. Their bodies are broken against things right and left. People are snapped in half.
So,
Like, they
It's
bring
so
people
intense.
down and they're like, their bodies just crumple
They
under the weight of
crunch.
them. But then they're also still alive. So they're
Yeah.
like fighting back as their bodies are like crumpled and broken over. Like, they break people's backs, their necks, everything you can imagine so many different times. And these people, they're vampires so they can continue to keep fighting with broken backs. And they're like fucking still contorting.
yeah,
And it's amazing.
it is.
This movie is 100 times better than I expected it to be. And I expected it to probably be like, it was alright. Like, this is one of my favorite viewing experiences of 2022. Now, do I think everyone's going to feel that way about this? Of course not. Nobody, you know, there's no film that has that kind of general love for it typically, right? Outside of maybe like Top Gun Maverick, which seems to win everybody
That
over this
one.
year.
Yeah.
But this movie is just, it's so fucking bonkers. The whole, like, every fight sequence is just
Yeah.
like, okay, here we go.
Like, who's gonna crumple this time?
Yeah.
And it's really funny too. Like, there was a lot of scenes that had both of us like laughing out loud, you know, at different
Yeah.
moments, and the comedic timing of everybody is really great. But, you know, and then the story as well, like, it's engaging. Like, you care about him, you care about Bud and his daughter and their relationship. And there's a really adorable scene where he has his daughter in a car chase. And that one too.
That one too.
And the car
Yeah.
chase scene.
The
with
car
his daughter
chase scene
is
is
just-
really fun.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just an entertaining movie all around.
It is.
For
and,
sure.
and I don't want to make it seem like it's reinventing the wheel or anything like that. It's very tropey.
Mm-hmm.
The story is fairly generic. They do try to build their own universe here for sure. This feels like Men in Black,
But with vampires.
but with vampires instead of Martians, right? Like they're building their own underground government task force who go out and hunt these things specifically and whatnot. We focus on Jamie Foxx's character 100% of the time. There's no diversion from him, so he is absolutely the focus of the film. And he really brings it. I think he's super fun in it. I think he's funny. He's just the macho guy who's, you know, pretty much infallible and he's always on top of everything. Dave Franco's character is kind of the he's not an idiot. He's just a coward. But most humans in this situation would be. Yeah. So he's kind of the human of the film, right? Sure. He's the us of the movie where we're watching. We're like, oh my god, if this shit was going on. There's a fight in a bowling alley that's amazing. There's a fight in the twin fight is amazing. The opening grandma fight is amazing. There's a really ridiculous scene with Snoop Dogg showing up. And then the humor. The humor is really on point. And this film is dumb, right?
Sure, like it's silly. I wouldn't say it's dumb. I think it's silly.
Okay,
I think it's kind of more goofy because it's not like you said. There's a lot of tropes and it is fairly generic. The vampire lore, like nothing really new at all comes out of it. But the film does what it does well, and it does it with like a sense of humor. Yeah, and it's not taking itself too seriously.
Very self-aware,
which is great. It's great to have.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you're action fans that love like watching crazy fight sequences, and you want like you're wanting to watch something like John Wick versus vampires kind of shit.
That's it. There
you go, man. I mean, I had a fucking blast. I really enjoyed the hell out of this. And I really, really hope that they make more. And,
me too.
We'll see how it's received. I mean, it has a 6.2 on IMDb. The critics are kind of split on it. Some people really get it. And some people really don't. And I think that's going to be probably how most people are. Mm-hmm. They're going to either think this is too stupid. But I will say this. If nothing else, if you're a fan of really over-the-top, cool action sequences that are violent, at bare minimum, watch the fight sequences. Because they're fucking awesome. The one against the old lady in the beginning... And then the one with the brothers in the house. Mm-hmm. Those two, for sure, are not to be missed this year. They are my favorite action sequences of 2022 currently. And that's crazy. I would never have thought that from this film. But there it is.
There it is.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what else to say about it.
That's I don't either. I think that's everything. Check it out.
It's a super fun time, but don't expect... some genius storytelling and like crazy twists, and the villain is super generic, forgettable, stock villain. I don't care. This is just the first film for me is always like, especially if they intend to be a franchise, like, no, we're gonna focus on the main characters.
Yes,
we're gonna build them up, right? You don't get the Thanos. Until later.
No, and it's you're watching it like for the action and for Bud.
And you know where this is going to go. But they do have some surprises with some of the characters that I was like, shit, I didn't see that coming. Right? And I was in on that for sure. And I do think they play around with the lore enough. And there's some really cool shots in this movie. Mm-hmm. Like some really cool shots. The director definitely was experimenting. There was shots coming out of moon roofs or sunroofs, or whatever you want to call it. They were cool. There was ones down in the suspension of trucks, and there's a lot of really neat shots in that way. And I just thought that with the vampire lore, they have some really cool stuff going on in here. Stuff with mirrors. That I thought was really cool and neat, and I'd never seen done before, because that's what it should be like.
Sure.
Because that's what would make sense. I don't want to say what it is. I don't want to spoil it, but no, that's the way the mirror stuff should work.
But it makes it almost worse too. Like, if that is how it works, it's almost worse than the other, other thing. We're being really vague.
Yeah, but you'll see.
You'll see.
But I liked all that stuff, and they do talk about multiple different kinds of vampires and different things. So they need to explain. They need to expand upon that for sure.
Absolutely.
So please, day shift, night shift. That should be the next one.
Should be
right, because that's when the suicide missions take place, right? And bring in the brothers. Yeah. Anyway. Well, let us know if you watch it. It is currently streaming on Netflix, so no excuses.
No excuses.
Check it out.
Watch it.
Bye.